Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 29 called Stacy Parts 4 and 5. So, as you guys know, Stacy is my recurring guest, and we've been following her along on her secondary infertility journey. So, in part 4 today, we're going to talk about how she had her second egg retrieval and was gearing up for her transfer, what happened with that. And then in part 5, we're going to talk about what happened with the transfer. So just so you guys know, and I don't want to give anything away because I want Stacy to tell you all, we're going to take a little bit of a break with Stacy. She and Ari and Noah are just going to try to be a little bit more private in their journey. They're still going through it. So we'll talk about that more in the podcast. But for now, so this is it with Stacy, but we'll check back in with her at some point, I'm sure. But I just want to thank you guys for listening to her story and being so invested in her story. And I want to thank Stacy so much for everything. So without further ado, this is the continuation of Stacy's infertility story. Stacy, how are you, my friend?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So we're midsummer right now. And last we spoke, so this is part 4 of our check-ins. And last we spoke, you had just done your second cycle. So tell me how things are going, how you're feeling, and fill us in on everything, please.
Yeah, so since we last talked, I had my second egg retrieval,
Mm-hmm.
and we're now, I guess that retrieval itself went better. We got 3 times, I just had to look this up. It was 3 times the number of eggs that we got from the first one, which
Wow.
was really, really exciting. The first one was lower. I think I told you this. It was much lower than we expected.
Yeah.
So the second one was a lot more successful.
Do you have any
But
reason why or any idea why?
yeah, they kind of switched up my meds a little bit. They just like tweaked the amounts,
Mm-hmm.
and my body just responded better.
Gave you more
Um,
of stuff, like more stims?
yeah, it was a little bit of a higher dose of the gonal F.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like very, very minor, but my body definitely responded better to it.
Okay.
So that was great. We were really excited. And then we got to the day 6 where you find out how many are frozen that can be tested. And we only had 3, which was a bummer. You know, we were hoping to get like double that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because with the balanced translocation, there's once they get to the testing phase to day 6, there's about a 25% chance that we'll have a good egg, so or a good embryo. So we were always hoping to get more than 4,
Right.
just so that we could kind of feel like guaranteed we're going to have one.
Yes. Understand.
So that was really disappointing. I was, kind of got in a bad headspace as soon as we found out that we only had 3, but then I was able to get myself out of it pretty quickly. Like we still have 3. It doesn't mean we're not going to get any. It just was sort of felt a little defeating in the moment to have done 2 cycles and feel like, oh, maybe that second one isn't going to be worth it.
Right.
But it was, because we got another healthy embryo out of it.
Yay.
Yeah. So now we have 2, which
Okay.
is great. So yeah.
So you've got
That's
2, what do they call them? M babies?
yeah.
I like that
Yeah.
term.
So,
I didn't know that term when I was going
I
through
didn't
it.
know it. Yeah, I didn't know it either. But yeah, so we're, and like, it's kind of funny. My mindset has shifted where I'm like, I want them both. Like now I want 3 kids. I want to we have put so much work into this.
Yes.
So, but we'll see. Obviously I can't get ahead of myself.
What's the process after that? Just waiting for a while to have your body calm down, or do you guys know when you're going to
Yeah.
trans?
Yeah. So after the second cycle, I got really sick it was like a week where I just got taken out and couldn't leave my bed basically. And it was my body just being like, you need to stop, because after the second egg retrieval, Ari and I went on a short trip. It was really nice, but it was definitely not like taking it easy. It was, we didn't do anything crazy, but it was, like spending all day walking and like just not totally relaxing, which I think was probably what I should have been doing. But I just got really sick afterwards and needed some time after that to just kind of not take any hormones and let my body just kind of recover from the 2 cycles and egg retrievals that I'd just been through.
Right. So, because you did that pretty back to back.
Yeah, pretty much immediately. Like I had my first egg retrieval, and then I think I went into my second round of IVF probably about 10 days later.
Okay. Yeah. That's so much on the body.
Yeah, I would not recommend it at all. It was kind of, we did it because we had a big family vacation planned, and I knew that I wanted to be fully recovered from whatever I was doing by then. Like I wanted to be having a break from IVF for that trip. So we kind of squeezed it in, which, it's fine. Like I'm glad we did it. We got a healthy embryo out of it, but I would recommend avoiding that for anybody else who's considering it.
So I do know that because we're friends and I follow you on Instagram, you did go on your family vacation and it looked so fun. So were you able to kind of relax and just, spend time with your daughter, Noah, and Ari, and just kind of forget about all this stuff for a minute?
Yeah, it was so nice. I got, it's this summer camp, and we were just kind of like no cell phone service, just our family. So it was really fun. And yeah, it was, I felt a little bit anxious towards the end of it because I was like, oh gosh, now I'm, going to go home and back to reality and back to, gearing up for this IVF stuff. So,
right.
But it came at a really good time.
That's good. And I think it's important to note, and you can speak to this too, because you just went through it, but it's so important if you can take those, it doesn't have to be a long family vacation, but even just a day or a minute, or, you talk a lot about self-care. And, I think that's important for people listening, is if you can carve out that time to just kind of get away from it all for as long as you can. I think that's so key. Because you feel kind of reset afterwards and like ready for the next steps.
Yeah, I definitely did. It was, it was just a really nice, clean break.
Okay, so what's happening now?
So now we're gearing up for the transfer. I think it's going to be in a couple of weeks. We originally wanted to take a little bit more time before doing it, but the more that I kind of learned about the process, just with like my natural cycle and the way that my doctor works, if I had waited longer, it would have kind of fallen during a really, really hectic time where we just have like some weddings and travel planned. And I was also kind of like, I don't want to be able to blame myself if the transfer doesn't work. Like I want to be able to do it at a time where things are going to be pretty mellow.
Right.
So we're doing it. And it's like a month earlier than we planned. So,
so not a huge adjustment.
In the scheme of things, not a big deal. But yeah, so we're gearing up for that. It is a whole new kind of stress with IVF. I feel like I, learned so much about all the meds and everything leading up to the retrieval. And now it's this whole new thing where I'm like, okay, what do I need to be doing? The eating the pineapple core, like when am I supposed to do that? And, talking to my acupuncturist, and I've actually started doing meditation and just kind of like finding ways to calm my mind, because I felt a little bit more in control when I was doing the meds and like,
because there's a schedule and there's something you have to follow.
Yeah. And it was like, it's on me. I need to do this correctly. And now it's just like, we have this frozen embryo. We're going to try to transfer it. It will be just like out of our hands whether or not it works. So yeah, I've been having kind of a hard time about that. It's been sort of a weird mindset too, where I feel like everything has been really hard for the last like year and a half with just the miscarriages and then the IVF cycles. It's all been a lot. And then it just feels like transferring seems very easy. And like, I don't know why, but in my mind, I'm like, it can't be that easy. There's something that honestly, I probably should talk to my therapist about a little bit, where I'm like, I can't have gone through all this and then it be like this easy now, you know?
Right. I mean, I think the whole thing is a perspective. It's like, it's really not easy. You still have to go through all this stuff, but maybe compared to what you have been through, it feels easy. So that's giving you a bit of a mind fuck. Like, it's like, wait, what's happening here?
Yeah. Cause I know logically, I'm like, it's not easy. Like this hasn't been easy, but I don't know. I think it might be just me like bracing for it to not work, like trying to prepare my mind for that. But you know, I'm still hopeful.
Right.
And I think the other thing is that there's, you know, you hear the success rates of the transfers and it's like, you know, my doctor said 70% success rate. And I kind of hate all of those, like any sort of
the percentages.
Yes. Like I hate those. I'm like, I have been on the other side of that multiple times now. So
glass half empty, glass half full. It's like, well, there's also a 30% failure rate. You know, it's hard to, it is hard. And those statistics too, I mean, obviously they come from somewhere, they're founded in studies, but sometimes you're like, it's a little arbitrary because everybody's so different.
Right.
And there's one little thing in one person that could, you know, change the percentage that somebody else doesn't have. So you never really know for sure, right?
Right, exactly.
I know there was one when we were emailing, you told me about a funny moment when you had to run down.
Oh my gosh.
You know the story I'm referring. Can you fill us in on what happened? This like one humorous moment in all of this?
Yes. So when we first talked, you had asked me about if I had done any injections in weird places, and I never ended up with a story like that. Everything was like very textbook. And then for our second transfer, we woke up at 5:00 in the morning to get to the appointment. You know, they're very strict about like, you need to get there on time, the trigger shot, all of that timing. So we woke up at 5, we got on the road at 5:30 in the morning. And I swear it must have happened like a minute before we got on the freeway. There was a huge accident that shut down every single lane. And so we were just stuck on the freeway.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what had happened. And so we were just kind of stuck there. And, you know, I keep seeing, we have it on our Google Maps, like what time we're supposed to arrive. And we had given ourselves so much time to get there. And I keep seeing the time go up and up and up, and completely started freaking out.
That's so stressful. I can't handle that either. Like being late for stuff is my worst nightmare.
Yeah. And like being late for this, like, I couldn't imagine going through everything that we had been through and like all of the work that had been put in, all the money we had spent, like every sacrifice we had made. And then like to not be able to make it for that final step.
Right. So you said it was your transfer, but it was your second retrieval.
Oh, sorry. It was my retrieval. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was for the retrieval. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, what does it feel like if you ovulate like 20 eggs or whatever? Like, what happens? Like, what happens if I miss this? So I was just completely freaking out. Like it was really rough. And Ari's driving and he's just like, I don't know what to do. And thank God he kind of didn't default to trying to solve the problem, because I think if he had done that, I would have like freaked out even more.
Yep.
Finally, I was just like, I'm getting out of the car. And he was like, what? I'm getting out of the car. And I looked it up on Google Maps and we were like a quarter of a mile from the train station to get into San Francisco.
Oh my God.
So I was just like, yep, I'm getting out. And so I got out of the car. I'm about to get my retrieval done. So I'm just like in my sweatpants, like, you know, not looking like I normally do. I'm carrying, I don't know why I did this, but instead of leaving my bag, which I was bringing back my sharps containers, instead of leaving that in the car with Ari, I decided to take that with me. So there I am at like 6 a.m. running on the freeway with in sweatpants, my face Yes, with a bag of needles, and my face is like red from crying. Like, I'm just like a total disaster. People are looking at me, I'm sure, just like I'm crazy.
Yeah, that's
And
like,
then,
that Citizen app that tells you what's going on in your neighborhood.
yes,
They're like homeless woman running down the
I
street like
know.
with a
I was
bag of
seriously,
syringes.
I know. I was like, please, like, don't let anybody I know see me, because this wasn't that far from our house.
Mhm.
So I was just like, please, like, I just don't want anyone I know to see me. And then, thank God, somebody else got out of their car and started running behind me. Like, I think they were going to the airport. They had luggage. So I was like, okay, like, this was a good idea. So
No,
then
you're like
me and this guy
Forrest
are
Gumping.
running on the freeway together.
You're like
And
Forrest Gumping it down the
I
street with
know,
some
I
other people.
know, it was so bad. But we get to the train station, me and my new friend, and right as the train was pulling up, get on the train
Oh my God.
with all people that are going to work. So like
Uh-huh.
everybody is a professional, and then I'm just like panting, like in my sweatpants. But I made it to the retrieval on time.
God. So wait, was Ari was still stuck in traffic?
He was stuck in traffic. I mean, this is kind of the kicker. He was stuck in traffic for like dead stopped for the next like 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And then it cleared up. And so when you get into San Francisco, there's also usually a lot of traffic when you get to the Bay Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I was calculating too. When I was looking at the time, I was like, not only are we sitting in this, but like as we sit in this, the traffic is just getting worse at the bridge.
Yeah.
There was like no bridge traffic that day. So he actually made it to San Francisco and picked me up at this train station, like right when I got there. So I was like, all right, this could have been avoided, but I would have been freaking out for the next, it was still worth it.
I can only imagine the tension in that car ride if you would have stayed.
I know. Not
It
would
because
have
of
been
you
bad.
guys, but I'm just imagining me and Vince like
Oh
in
my
that
gosh.
situation. Oh.
Yeah.
And again,
Because
it's
I was
the
just,
lack of
what is
control, right?
Yeah, because I was like, what do I do? And the other thought that I had was like, if I stay in this car, like now is the best time to get out because we're so close to the station.
Mm-hmm.
But if I stay in this car, like I am committed to this. So I just
Yes.
needed to be moving.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, so that was insane.
Oh my
And, afterwards, like, and it was totally not, you're going into this procedure. It was so stressful
Right.
already. Like I had this whole morning planned where I was like, I had, my like calming playlist that I listened to and, and then instead I'm running on the freeway, like not at all what I was expecting.
I don't know why I'm picturing you in just socks and like no shoes for some reason, but I'm
I
guessing
basically should have been. I
pineapple
was such
socks.
a mess. Yeah, I was such a mess, but
Oh
it
my
worked
God.
out.
That's such a great story that you will tell your future child. Like, do you realize not only did I go through all this medical
I
stuff,
know.
but then that story too is so good.
I know. It was crazy. But yeah, and then, the other thing just to like shout out Ari and all of this is like that was in my mind. I asked him later. I was like, "Is that the lowest you've ever seen me?" And he had to think about it a little bit and he was like, "I think maybe after the first miscarriage was like a little bit, of a lower moment, but like it was really bad. Like I was really, sobbing and like not holding together at all."
Yeah.
And it just is like, it was just like another kind of moment for me where I was like, thank God for him.
Yes.
Like it just means so much to have a partner going through all of this who like can just be there and be like, you're being a little bit crazy. And I mean, it was justifiably crazy, but it's just been amazing to have that support. So
yeah, I mean, you guys are a testament of, you can go either way as a couple. You can this can tear you apart or bring you together. And it sounds like it's just continues to keep bringing you guys closer and tighter. And that's so awesome. So yeah, shout out to Ari. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been amazing. It has been hard. I mean, it's like the financial stuff, like everything is hard. Like the, just amount that, and I think with the secondary infertility part, like we have a 3-year-old that needs us, so like Ari has stepped in a lot of ways when I can't be there. So, there's been a lot of really hard things with all of this. It can be really hard on the relationship. And I'm just so thankful that like for us, we've were stronger.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Okay. So now you were just waiting. I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but can you unpack a little bit, like specifically what you're doing? You said you were doing acupuncture or talking to your acupuncturist. Like what else leading up to the transfer? Just, so listeners can know, like, what are some of the things?
yeah. So, I'm trying to eat a pretty healthy diet. My doctor is very much like, it doesn't matter what you eat. It's just, like whatever. He's very scientific. So I know a lot of people get the advice on like, no carbs, none, like a lot of that. He doesn't believe in that at all, but I'm still trying to, eat really clean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have done acupuncture. I was able to just get in one time last week. And then my acupuncturist does a lot with fertility. So she's coming to my house like within 48 hours of the transfer.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So so we'll have her. And then, like I said, it's actually it's such a Bay Area thing, but one of my daughter's teachers does this meditation series
Mm-hmm.
for the parents at the school. So I've been going to this meditation every Monday night with her. And then she actually created like a custom meditation for me to do around fertility and I haven't done it yet, but she just created it last week.
Ooh,
So
I love that. Cool.
yeah, she's amazing. She's like, the best. So,
Mhm.
so I'm excited to do that because I never really was into meditation before, but then this it's like an 8-week series that she's doing. And I think that the last one is going to be probably like the week of the transfer, which is really great timing, but it's just kind of a nice, like 1 hour a week where it's just like me meditating. And it's all like guided, and she has, a program every week, but that has been really great just for kind of stress management. I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the biggest thing for me right now is just like managing my stress and anxiety about the transfer. So
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we will check in with you after your transfer and possibly after you get the results.
yeah, that sounds
Um,
great.
Hey guys, so that was part 4 of Stacy's journey, and we are going to move on to part 5, the final chapter for now. Okay, so we are back with Stacy. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Allie.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for doing this again. I know everybody's been really invested in your story and everything that's going on. So thanks again for just opening up your lives to all of our listeners. The feedback has been really incredible. So
Oh, thank you.
I just want to fill everybody in, bring everybody up to speed. So last we spoke, which was our part 4, you had done 2 cycles and you'd gotten a little sick after that first cycle. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then you had 2 embryos that were being stored and you were gearing up for your transfer. So I remember you were saying you were hopeful, but kind of preparing yourself for the fact that it might not work. And you had gotten into meditation too. So
Yeah.
fill us in on what happened.
Yeah, it's funny. It feels like so long ago.
I know. And I'm like, I
But it
miss,
wasn't
like
that
when
long
I
ago.
don't talk to you, I'm like, I wanted to just catch up with her. Like, I feel like now I want to talk to you like every week just for fun.
Well, thank you.
Is that weird?
Yeah, so not at all. So we had 2 embryos. Both were really highly graded. So we were feeling pretty good, and we were preparing for our transfer. So the transfer happened, it's probably like a month ago now. And yeah, it was a very stressful time. I think what was kind of surprising about all of that, the time like around the transfer and after the transfer, was I felt like I was more hormonal and kind of crazy than I was during any point during the egg retrieval part of the cycle, where you actually are being pumped full of hormones.
Mhm.
So it was very stressful. I know you mentioned in a previous episode the 2-week wait period, which is literally just torture.
Yes.
Where
Tell
you're,
me about that for you.
yeah, it was really hard. I was like, kind of I was paying attention to every single thing that might be a symptom or might not be. I was like waking up in the middle of the night and checking my pulse because your heart rate increases when you're pregnant. So I was like, well, is it between 90 and 100 now? Like it was kind of crazy. I told Ari during those 2 weeks, I was like, you can't tease me. You can't make any jokes. Like, I don't have any sense of humor right now. I was like, nope, normally I could take it. Right now I can't. But yeah, and it was really nice. Like, I think, you know, when it was all kind of happening, I had in the back of my mind that it might not work. But once the transfer happened and we actually got to like watch the embryo be implanted, I was like, if this works, this is a very cool thing to get to watch happen.
Yes.
And I kind of just felt really good about it. Like I was like, you know, all signs point to this working. Like this embryo's been tested. It's the highest rating they would give to an embryo. I know they do like different ratings at different places, but this was the highest rating that they give where I'm going. So it just felt really positive. Like the issue has been this chromosomal problem.
Right.
We know that embryo didn't have it. I have had no problem getting pregnant.
Yeah.
So it just felt like it was going to work. And
Yeah.
I kind of, once the transfer happened, I wasn't really letting myself get to that mindset of it not working. So like before the transfer, I was really thinking like, I got to prepare for this to not work. And then once the transfer happened, I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do if it doesn't work. Like I am so invested in this working.
Yeah. I want to talk about that a little bit more, not to interrupt, but just because I think that's so important to talk about, just the emotions going into it and the expectations and, you know, kind of setting your own expectations, but letting yourself, you know, we've talked about that before too, letting yourself have that little bit of joy and that little celebration, like doing a successful transfer, like even, you know, just the day of, that's a milestone and that's something you want to be happy about, even though you still do have the 2-week wait. So tell me how you dealt with all of those emotions that were probably all over the place.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back a little bit to the miscarriages that I had, because after the second miscarriage, I had a really hard time, Ari and I both did, getting excited about that next pregnancy. And once we got past the 10-week mark and we thought we were good, we were like, okay, now we can like be happy and be excited and start planning and start doing all these things. And then it just like, we kind of got crushed after that. And so I have felt very scared to get hopeful. And that was how I felt going into the transfer. Was I just didn't want to have my hopes up, because I know how it feels to like have those kind of be crushed. I thought, well, it's going to hurt just as bad if I'm hopeful or if I'm prepared. So I might as well let myself feel excited. And, you know, I definitely started doing the planning and of like, okay, the due date's going to be around here. So what does that mean for this schedule and all that kind of stuff that you do? So yeah, so it felt good to kind of feel hopeful again. I think the other really nice thing that happened during the transfer, I mentioned, or after the transfer, I mentioned that Noah and Ari and I took a trip, and that was really nice because it was so fun. And we were at the beach, and I was, you know, just kind of thinking about it then. I was like, I feel like this transfer is going to work. And I think, you know, we're going to grow our family. But if it doesn't, like, this is pretty great. Like, what we have is pretty awesome. And I don't want to lose sight of that. So it was kind of a nice reminder, because right after that trip, we drove straight to the clinic for my blood work to test if it worked. So it was nice to kind of have that time together as a family and know that we were going to be okay no matter what happened. So that was all good. I feel like this is all kind of building up to the fact that once we got the blood work done, the transfer did technically work, but it was a chemical pregnancy. So my HCG levels were at 18 when we got tested. And so the nurse that I spoke to said that was low. And I was like, well, how low is it? Like, is there any chance? And she's like, well, normally at this stage, you'd be up in the thousands. I was like, okay.
You're like, what's it supposed to be? 19, 20?
Yeah.
No.
I was
Yeah.
like, am I close? Like,
There's so many different numbers for different and different
yeah.
levels. It's hard to keep it all straight. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So that was pretty devastating. We were, we went to the appointment in San Francisco. I dropped Noah and Ari off at the park, and then I went to get the blood work, and then I went to go meet them. And it was actually kind of like comically sad when I found out, because I had taken Noah to go use the bathroom, and we passed a carousel on the way. So she was like, oh, can I go ride it? So I was like, yeah, we'll take you to go ride it. And they called like literally right before the ride started. So I was standing next to Noah. She was on her little zebra and the music was playing. And I just started sobbing. I was like, I gotta go. This merry-go-round's about to start. So it was pretty sad looking, I think, if you were to be an outsider. I was like trying to keep it together for Noah.
yes.
But yeah, it was rough. And then, we kind of thought we were going to have this really fun day in the city. But after we found out the news, I was like, I just want to go home. Like,
Yeah. Was Noah tuned into any of that?
she was a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've tried to, we did say like, and we knew that this embryo was a boy. So she asked what was wrong. We're like, we were trying to give you a baby brother. It didn't work.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So it was really rough. And, and then we were kind of in the same situation that I know you've talked about, where like now we have one. And, I listened to, around that time was when you released the third episode, and I listened to it. I went on a walk like a couple days after we found out that it didn't work. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but I'm just going to listen to this episode. And it was kind of nice because I was reminded that like I said a bunch of times when we talked then that I never know what I'm going to do until I'm in that situation. And like, I'm in a new situation again, like kind of the worst thing that we thought could happen just happened. And we're getting through it. And we don't really know, what we're going to do when we're going to do the next transfer. We know we don't want to hold off too long, but we're just kind of taking it day by day. And so it's been rough. The emotions about it really come in waves where I'll be feeling really good, and then, something will happen or somebody will say something, and it won't even really be directly related to this, but I just will feel like very sad. And so
I know it's so devastating, and you're, trying to figure out what to do next and when. A couple questions. Have the doctors recommended anything, or are they saying right now, just take your time? And
so they haven't made any recommendations. They said the transfer worked. The issue was, this is kind of the way that he framed it for me, that they grade the embryos as best they can, but it's so early on, and then they grow so rapidly once they're implanted that mistakes can just happen. So they have like the best knowledge possible about how good the embryo is. But sometimes they're wrong. And in this case, the embryo was just not a good embryo.
Yeah. So did it turned out that there was a chromosomal issue, you think?
It wasn't a chromosomal issue. That's the thing. So I don't know what it was. The way he described it was just that cells divide and multiply, and mistakes just happen. So,
okay.
So at some point when it was trying to grow, it just didn't work. And it was interesting because I was definitely having kind of my earliest pregnancy symptom that I've had with Noah and had with any of the other pregnancies is dizziness. And I was getting that a lot. And that was very early on in those pregnancies. So I was kind of like, it feels like I'm pregnant, but I also am so stressed and like, so I'm monitoring the way that I feel way more than I ever do.
Right.
So, it felt like it was going to work. Just internally, I felt like I was pregnant. And I guess in some sense I was, so that's good. But yeah, so it's not anything at this point, they don't think it's anything that's wrong with me, and they don't recommend any testing. So it's just when we want to try again.
Okay. So can we talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about the notion of secondary infertility? I know we both, I went through it as well, and it's a very common thing, but I would love to hear, going through it, being in the midst of it right now, like, can you kind of explain, in your opinion, at least, like, people who might not understand, like, but you have a baby, why are you putting yourself through this? Like, that's one of the common things that I think people think or say sometimes, which obviously is very painful to hear if you're the person going through it. But can you explain, like, for me, it was, and I've said this before, so sorry to reiterate to anybody who's heard this, but it wasn't that ever wasn't enough. It was that I loved being a mom so much that I wanted to do it again. Like, I wanted everything all over again.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the best way I could think to explain it. And I don't know if it makes sense to people who aren't in that situation, but how would you explain it in your own words?
So there are a few things, like right now, we've had these moments, the three of us, and I feel so much joy. There's these moments where we're, outside barbecuing, playing, like, and it's just these special family moments where I will simultaneously, and this has been in the last 2 weeks in particular, but I will simultaneously feel so much joy and then so much sadness at like what we have, but it just feels like there's something missing. Like our family just doesn't feel complete. And Ari and I have both talked about wanting a big family. So that's kind of what we've always envisioned, is like the chaos of like multiple kids having their friends over, like, just, we love that. We love, having people over who have multiple kids now.
So do I. Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we've always envisioned. But I would say early on, it's sort of complicated for me. So when I had a really hard time, I think everybody does, with a newborn and breastfeeding, and I had the baby blues like horribly. And, it's just such a huge shift in your life. And there were some things, particularly with the breastfeeding, that I have felt like I want to do over. Like not that I don't think that I was enough for Noah, or not a good enough mom, but there are moments that you're like when you're in them, they're really hard, and you don't always appreciate how fleeting that time is. And now I know that, and I've felt that way for a long time. I think also going through the miscarriages, like when I found out I was pregnant with the first miscarried pregnancy, I was really terrified. Like I was like, how am I going to do this? Like I knew that I wanted it, but I was like, how are we going to function with like a 2.5-year-old and a baby? Like this seems so hard.
Yeah.
And so kind of going through this process, I've learned how much I want it while I'm going through it, because it was so easy with Noah. I didn't have this appreciation that I know a lot of my friends have had. And I think that that's been a huge learning for me. All my friends who have gone through infertility or multiple miscarriages before having their first child, like the fear that you must have, like that you'll never be able to have this.
Yeah.
I appreciate that on a much deeper level than I ever did. So I understand, and I've tried to be really sensitive with my friends who have dealt with infertility when I talk to them about what we're going through. I understand that the two experiences are so different. Like I have Noah to look at as like proof that we can do this.
Right.
And as this just like wonderful part of our life, like we have this beautiful family that I know a lot of people fear that they're never going to be able to have. So I do appreciate that there is a big difference. And I don't know, I think that the kind of like yearning for something is the same.
Yeah.
Like I've never wanted anything more than I want this.
I know. I know.
And
Oh my God. I know.
yeah.
I
And
know. I'm
yeah.
like welling up because I remember that feeling
Yeah. And it's
so
hard
intensely.
because it's just like, God, we just have no control over it. So, we're doing the best we can. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about secondary infertility. It's definitely complicated. Like I have complicated feelings about what we're trying to do and
Yeah.
all the work that we've put into it
Yeah.
and being sensitive to my friends who have been or are going through it
Right. I
before
think that some
having
people
kids.
feel secondary infertility guilt too, which I didn't feel, but I know a lot of people that have reached out to me that are going through it have said that they feel guilty. Like, why can't I just be happy with what I have? And to those people and to myself, I would just say, it's okay. It's just as hard, whether it's the second kid or the third or the fourth or the fifth or, it's not a competition of whose
Right.
infertility is harder or, so
Right.
I would
Yeah.
just,
And I mean, I think that the other part of that is like, yes, we already have Noah and we're so grateful for that. She like really, really wants a sibling. She talks about
yeah,
it almost every single day.
right.
And so, I mean, we're doing this to build our family, but we also, we want Noah to have a sibling and to have
Yeah.
that, like she loves her friends' younger siblings. She talks about just siblings in general a lot.
Oh,
The other day, she told me that she wants to have a younger sister first, and then we can have a baby brother. And I'm like, okay, like,
she's so cute.
we're trying.
Yeah, I know. I
But
know
it's
it's
very
hard.
sweet.
And being a great mom as you are, you want to give your kids the world, right? So I think that's part of it too. That's a really important part of secondary infertility is wanting to make your kids who are already in your family happy as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's another kind of layer to it that,
Totally. And one thing that has been that I've really thought about and struggled with is the age gap between kids.
Mhm.
And like that was when I was first pregnant. I was like 2.5 years. That's like me and my sister. That's perfect. That's so great, and like with every pregnancy or everything, I kind of think about what the age gap is going to be.
Yeah.
And something I heard, I forget where I did, but somebody said that like yeah, you can try to control this age gap and have in your mind that your kids are going to have this perfect relationship because they're 3 years apart, but like one thing that you have no control over is whether your kids actually like each other. So like just because you're like doing something at a certain age,
It's so
there's certain
true.
age difference, it doesn't mean that they're going to be best friends.
Yeah,
And
because you don't know what the person.
Ari's younger sister is 7 years younger than him, and they
Yeah.
have such a great relationship. So
Yeah.
like, so that's been something that I've been, trying to let go. But I think that is an
Yeah.
interesting part of secondary infertility because I mean, most people think when they are planning for their second kid, they're thinking about how old their first kid is.
Definitely. And yeah, Ever and Sunny are 6.5 years apart, which is a lot. But
Yeah.
I have to say there's some really big pros to her being so much older than him is like when he was a newborn, she could sit with him while I took a shower and she could help
That
me
is
like
nice.
change his diapers. And, she was like my mommy's little helper. And in that sense, it was
Totally.
something I wasn't really expecting that was actually really, really great. And now, they're in the same school for the first time. So he's in pre-K, she's in fifth grade. And she's like, the other day, she goes, Mom, I feel so cool that I have a baby brother in the school because they call him the senior.
Oh,
So she's a senior and he's like a freshman basically. And, so there's that aspect to it too, where, that age gap is lending itself to like a totally different relationship than I would have ever expected between them. And it's their own little
yeah.
special thing. So I think
Yeah.
it's hard not to get hung up on that, but I think you kind of have to just let whatever is going to happen with the gaps.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, unless there's anything else you want to say, I know that right now, this is really raw still for you and painful. So, you and I talked about you guys were going to, we'll take a break doing these updates and let you and Ari and Noah, live your lives. And this has all been very public for you and you guys have been wonderful about sharing everything, but it's probably time for you guys to take a little step back and have a little more privacy and So just so the listeners know, this is the last update that we have planned for now. And, if this is it, then I have so much love for you. Like I really feel like I've really gotten to know you over the last, several conversations that we've had. And I just wish you guys nothing but the best. So I know you and I will keep in touch, but I don't know if it will be on the podcast. So I just want to thank you for everything that you guys have shared. And, I know it's not easy, but I want to send you like a packet of all the emails and messages I've gotten for people talking about how much your stories helped them. So just know that like this has been really great for other people. So
yeah, that's so nice to hear. And it's been really wonderful to do this. I think just in general, what we're hoping is, we're going to take a step back from this, but also just, we've been pretty open about everything, obviously with our family and friends too. And we're kind of hoping that we can take a step back, figure out what we're going to do. And then just like normal pregnant couples or, couples welcoming a child into their family, like that we'll be able to share good news when we have it, but keep things to ourselves in the meantime. But it's been really, really nice for me to be able to do this too. And listening to all the other stories on this podcast, I relate so much to so many of these women. So what you're doing is really special.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being such a huge part of it. Hey again, guys. Thank you so much for listening. And thanks again to Stacy for sharing all the ups and downs and happiness and disappointments of this real AF journey that a lot of us are on or have been on, called infertility, or just the path to making a baby. So thanks for listening. I also want to add that everything's going so great with the podcast. We're growing exponentially. If you guys wouldn't mind to take a second to pop on over to Apple, give it a rating and a quick review, that makes a huge difference in terms of our exposure. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys next time.